Well, club football is soon to return to your screens, and we better start talking about how squads are shaping up, especially in the Premier League, which is always center of focus, and that is what we're going to be doing here right now with a lot of incomings and outgoings already happening, and still considerable time for more to happen. We discuss the potential of how these squads could gel, could play to the philosophy of managers, and what have you, yeah. And I'm surely not doing this alone. We've got in-house researcher here, Ibikunle Salako, to do this with me. Great to have you, Ibikunle, on the show today. And first things first, how much have you missed club football? I'm sure you've done. I mean, we've seen tournaments. The Olympics is top of the mind these days, but does anything quite compare to club football for you?
Well, thank you for having me on the show today, Ayomide. Nothing really. I think the only thing that comes close is the World Cup, but that is quadrennial. It comes every 4 years. Maybe the AFCON too, which comes every 2 years. But like club football is club football. You know, it gives you that feel of loyalty and that feel of everyday banter, because you tend to always want to banter your friends and your family when their teams don't do well.
Oh, well, interesting. So I better let's get into what we have called the Big Five in the Premier League here in this part of the world. Of course, there are not too many clubs followed as much as these five, even across Europe. I'm talking about more recently Manchester City. They've joined the train, and then Arsenal, well, great following they've got here, and also Chelsea as well. Liverpool, almost everywhere in the world, and perhaps not too many bigger brands than Manchester United as it stands. But these are the clubs that I'll be looking at. And I'd like us to start with your thoughts of how each team's finished from last season. And, of course, what the expectation should be going into the new season for each of these clubs.
Well, I think realistically, Manchester City obviously top of the pile, did something no other team had done, won 4 consecutive Premier League titles. They were very close to being the first side that did English double, thanks to Manchester United, which stopped that from happening.
How are you thanking them?
It was needed because they were turning the Premier League into the English League into the Farmers League, so to speak. Liverpool, on the other hand, started the season well, but for some reasons didn't finish very well. They were able to manage just one title, the Carabao Cup. So I wouldn't give them a pass mark, but you know, they returned back to the Champions League, so that's great for them on one hand. On the other hand, they've lost legendary manager Jurgen Klopp, who has decided to take some rest from football. You know,
we're certainly going to talk about Arne Slot and how he slots into his new job there.
Yeah, hopefully. Arsenal, for me, very unlucky not to have won the Premier League title. I thought they had what it took to have won it last season. I think they're just a striker and one very creative midfielder away from winning the Premier League title. So maybe let's see this season. Man United really didn't do well in the Premier League, but they got a bit of respite from the FA Cup that they won, which obviously saved them Eric Ten Hag's job with the new management, the Ineos guys coming in. Chelsea. Yeah. Chelsea, young squad, they weren't really helped by the amount of players that they had. These guys took them tight to gel. Then a lot of their key players got injured. Kunku injured. Lavia didn't even play for the whole part of the season. Same to Rich James. And, who knows what happens this season.
Okay, so now let's get talking about these clubs. And, of course, we like to start with Arsenal and their incomings. We knew sort of that David Raya will be retained. From last summer, it was a loan to, of course, have this obligation to buy, as, clubs do these days. And then Riccardo Calafiori, a sensation from the European Championship, and also a mainstay in Bologna's defense and a key part of their success last season, is moved to London. And, well, when I look at what they've done, I don't know how much conviction that they have about the improvement from last season and then how they are going to have to compete with City. Because City, let's not make any mistake about it, are still the team to compete against.
Well, realistically, I feel like they've not done the most important business that they need to do. I think they need to bring in a striker. Gabriel Jesus hasn't really covered himself in glory because he's been injured for, I think, the past 2 seasons where he's been there. So he's really not had, stamped his feet down as the top-ranked man in the front line. Kai Havertz had a good season by his own standards last campaign, but I think they are that 30-goal a season, 35-goal a season striker away from really, really troubling the Premier League and even Europe, so to speak. I think it was vital that they brought, they had David Raya back into the squad. Last season, he was on loan from Brentford, but bringing him back into the squad permanently now is really important. But I think the thing with Ricardo Calafiori is this new craze for a four centre back line. We saw it start with Guardiola playing Akanji, playing Nathan Ake, Ruben Diaz,
Stones,
John Stones,
inverting into midfield, as they say.
Gavdio, in that four centre back line. Sometimes Kyle Walker in there too. So I think that craze for that four centre back line is what Arteta is trying to achieve this season. He tried it with Jacob Kiwior in the latter parts of the season, but he didn't have so much pace. So I think they were caught off guard a bit.
Now, just before we leave talking about Arsenal, Emil Smith-Rowe has moved to Fulham.
Yeah.
West London from North London, and dreams of a sort of player like that was to go on and do it, but it just didn't happen. And now there's conversations around whether Arsenal are really giving youth a chance.
Well, I think that has always been their MO since the days of Arsene Wenger. It was really keen on bringing the young players from their A-Land academy. One of our own, as they do call it over there. I think Emil Smith-Rowe was given quite of a chance by Arteta himself. It was just shameful that last season he got injured. I think the injury sort of derailed his development. Because you look at the side that has arguably one of the best right wingers in the world in Bukayo Saka. He wasn't but he was one of their feeders team players. So Emil Smith-Rowe too was towing that line until the injury last season. Really didn't give him that much of a chance. If they are giving young players a chance, definitely they have a really young squad. But about them giving players from their own academy a chance, I'm not really sure about that.
Okay, let's move to Chelsea. There's a lot to talk about around them. Obviously, the incomings, you see Tosin Adarabioyo, great to see a player of Nigerian heritage. Maybe he will play for the Super Eagles soon, as
maybe, hopefully.
Some reports are suggesting. But then there's also Kenan Dewsbury-Hall, who's come from Leicester City, following the new coach, Enzo Maresca, by the way. And then there's Maguire from Barcelona, Catalan talent. Philip Jorgensen, also from Spanish shores, from Villarreal as well. And also look at the outgoing Thiago Silva, obviously a big miss in terms of the experience that's leaving the club. And then Ian Martin, I think that they should have just kept Martin, but, well, maybe it doesn't suit what Maresca is trying to do. But then Akin Ziyech is one of those players that reminds me that, Chelsea won the Champions League in 2021.
Well, I'd say Chelsea are a bit of a funny one for me because I think they have the most players in the Premier League. I don't even think those players sort of know their teammates because a couple of seasons ago they brought in 16 players. Let's not forget that. This season they're already towing the line of that. There's Kendrick Pies, who is still brought about 3 or 4 guys from Brazil, 3 young guys from South America that still has to be there until I think 2-3 years down the line. So when you add all of those guys to this team that they have, I understand what they're trying to do. The Blue Co group, I think they're trying to build a culture of young talents. But I think it gets to a point when you ask yourself, as the owners of a winning team, because Chelsea is known for winning.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They don't care how they do it.
Especially in the last 20 years.
Yes, they just want to win. So when you have a team like this on your hands, you need to ask yourself, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to build for the future or are you trying to win? And let's not forget that fans can be very, 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 fickle with these things. They really don't care. They just want to brag.
But one question I'd really like to ask you, Bikule, is look, for any coach, and talk more of Enzo Maresca coming from the Championship, leading Leicester back into the Premier League, how difficult is it when the transfer policy at Chelsea allows for a wide pool of players like this?
Well, it has to do with their own discussions, I think. Because if I were to be a football coach, going into a team like Chelsea, there has to be well outlined objectives. There has to be a clear directive on what sort of power I have as a coach. Not to digress a bit, but there were discussions about Eric Ten Hag's contract with Manchester United about how much power he's going to have in terms of signing players. I think discussions like that, it probably would have gone down in Chelsea too. About, okay, Maresca, these are the guys you want. This is our own transfer policy. This is the way we view our team in the next 4, 5, 6 years. Are these objectives in line with your own set goals? If they are in line, definitely put pen to paper. So I think they are way past that now because obviously he signed the deal. He's their head coach. They've played a couple preseason games under him. So I think he's moved past that. But I think what they need to be very clear about is what do they want to do over the next 2, 3, 4 seasons, I beg your pardon. Do they want to win like everybody has known them to do, or do they want to, steadily build the blocks towards future success.
Well, interesting that Liverpool have not done any business in terms of welcoming players into the fold at Anfield, but there have been outgoings. Joe Matip, servant of the club, but has now been released. Thiago Alcantara, we also understand due to injuries, he had to retire, and that was sad to see. Then Adrian has also left the club as well. But on his slot, I mean, I imagine that anytime a new manager comes around, he wants to bring his own sort of players. Yeah. He wants to implement his own kind of team, his own philosophy. And you watched him in the presser a couple of days back, and he said, look, I'm content with the team I have here. I don't know how you find that.
Well, for me, I tend to have a problem with, I tend to have a problem with fans that expect managers to come out against the owners of the clubs and say, oh, you're not supporting me enough. That's rule number one. Something you're not going to do or say about your employers.
I mean, you're contracted.
Yeah, definitely. The man on our screen, proper servant of the game, Thiago Alcantara, his body just couldn't let him, achieve what he wanted to achieve. But he gained a couple of some success with Liverpool. Now he's returned to Catalonia with Barcelona, where I think it's part of the coaching class, coach. Yeah. But on a slaughter, I think, like you said, new managers come in and they want their footprints, their fingerprints to be on the side. I think he's not been backed enough. Liverpool fans felt like with the return of Michael Edwards to the team, things would change because he was the one that ushered in this success, bringing in Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, Roberto Firmino, and the like. So I think they felt like, okay, things would change under Michael Edwards returning, but it hasn't been like that. They've been more of outgoings than incomings. And
so what kind of business do you think they need to be doing, though?
Well, definitely defenders. I think they conceded quite a number of goals last season. Konate injured for some parts of the season. Same with Joe Matip, who has left already. Andrew Robertson was in and out of.
And you also get the feeling that if Virgil van Dijk, for whatever reason, gets injured, then they're in trouble.
They are in trouble, and there are still talks of Joe Gomez probably favouring a move to Newcastle. There are discussions around Trent Alexander-Arnold being, wooed by Real Madrid. So there's a lot there. Even in their striking position, Diogo Jota hasn't kept himself fit over the last few seasons. So they need somebody there to get them goals. They still haven't replaced Sadio Mane in my own books. They still don't have that Roberto Firmino type of connector in front. Their midfield is very, very lax. They only have Endo, the Japanese. Then you have Curtis Jones and Dominic Szoboszlai and Aviero. No disrespect to these guys, but they are not there yet for a team like Liverpool. I think they need to do quite a number of business before.
Well, certainly so many question marks around Liverpool. We'll see how it unfolds as the season begins. And, well, right now we'll have to take a break here on Afro Sport 9 Focus. We return talking about the Manchester clubs just after this. Hey, welcome back. Let's get straight to talking about the Manchester clubs. Manchester United, obviously, not a great season for them the last time out. And, well, their contemporaries, their neighbours, Manchester City, they've, of course, done themselves a lot of good, winning a number of titles. And they've added Savinho from Troyes, and they've let Sergio Gomez and Liam Delap, who I thought was an interesting prospect when he first broke out. They've let them go anyways. But then for Manchester United, Joshua Zirkzee from Bologna, Lenny Yoro from Lille. And then you look at the outgoings, Rafael Varane, Anthony Martial, Donny van der Beek, and Willy Kambuala. Now, I'd like to start with City, Bikunle. With the amount of success that they have recorded, I mean, in the last decade or thereabouts, how do you go up again? How do you motivate players? Because I try to imagine what Pep Guardiola does sometimes. How do you motivate players to go on again and achieve something incredible after all you've achieved already? Even bringing in a player like Savinho.
Well, like you said, that rests on the coach. Rests on the objectives of the club itself. And at City, they have a fantastic structure. Shigi Begiristan is there. These guys are football guys. There's Guardiola who, everywhere he goes, makes the team his own. Makes you understand that you're not bigger than the team. And I think they have a bunch of winners. I saw their documentary last season, and I sort of understood the mental capacity, the mental space in which a lot of those players are. Rodri, Ruben Diaz, Kai Walker. These guys are hungry to win. They don't care what they did last season. Guardiola has instilled that sort of culture about, oh, you won yesterday. Yesterday has passed. This is a new day. And I think that's the way they get to motivate themselves. You can motivate players extrinsically, but the biggest one is intrinsic. It's from inside. And a lot of these guys are internally motivated. They want to win. A lot of them are coming from places where they've really not won. They are at Man City where they've won. And let's not forget that the jostling for starting positions alone is big time motivation on its own. So I think that's what keeps a lot of those players grounded.
Yeah, well, different story for Manchester United. New era, sort of, with Ineos doing the business as opposed to the Glazers doing the football thing. You know, the new arrangement of Ineos handling the football side of the club. It still seems funny when you put it in diction, how an owner can allow another co-owner around the club. But then you have the results here. Joshua Zirkzee, an interesting prospect, was Young Player of the Year in Serie A last season. Lenny Yoro also. So many people regard this as a coup. I mean, with the likes of Liverpool, Real Madrid, and even Paris Saint-Germain trying to convince the young man to play for them. But with Manchester United now, and with 2 weeks before the start of the season, how confident are you that Eric Ten Hag can, put away the demons of last season?
Well, in terms of confidence, I'd say about 60%, because I've seen a couple of their preseason games and they've been okay. They're trying to bring in Matthias de Ligt to cover up for the Lenny Yoro that has picked up a 3-month injury. Joshua Zirkzee, who's of Nigerian descent, by the way, would be covering for Rasmus Højlund, who has picked up a hamstring injury that was him out for 6 weeks. Hopefully, the ghost of last season that kept knocking their players down with injuries doesn't return this season.
Well, it already looks like that.
Yeah, but it's football, and that is why you hear Eric Ten Hag say they are trying to build a big squad. If they have a big squad, then they don't really need to bother about what happened. They are trying to get a lot of players out of the club so they can bring in fresh legs, new motivation. There are talks of Matthias de Ligt.
Okay, Ibikele, you know what? Just to conclude, these two teams, City and United, meet in the Community Shield in 2 Sundays' time. Just give your predictions very quick and fast before we wrap up the show.
I think Manchester City will win that. I think Manchester City will win that.
Okay, interesting. We'll see how that turns out. But these big five have done the business. They're still doing the business. We could still see more from these teams. But so far, so good. With the 2 weeks left, we'll see how things go in the transfer market. 2 weeks before the start of the season. A couple of weeks also before the end of the transfer market. But then, thank you very much, Ibikele Salako, for your contributions here.
It's my pleasure.
And yes, thank you also for watching. You can always follow us on social media handles at AfroSport TV. You can get all the latest updates on our website as well. It is www.afrosportnow.com. My name is Ayomide Sholubo. Thank you again for watching. It's bye for now.